This program is powered by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, a Feature Group USA production.
Hello, everybody. I'm Phil Brandt, President and CEO of AIM Employers Association. Research from the World Economic Forum suggests that 50 to 60% of typical junior tasks like resume screening, drafting job descriptions or postings, and data entry can already be executed by AI. Does that mean the next generation of professionals is losing the very skills they need to grow? Strap in. I'm about to get fired up on This Week at Work.
Welcome to This Week at Work, the only show to pack workplace news, practical HR solutions, and timely insights into every 30-minute episode. From the latest rulings in the courtroom to the strategies unfolding in the boardroom, and from real conversations taking place on the front lines to spotlighting what similar companies are doing about the challenges they face. This Week at Work brings you the conversations that matter most to HR professionals and business leaders like you. Brought to you by AIM Employers Association and Ogletree Deacons, live every Thursday morning. This is your opportunity to connect with their experts and ask your burning questions. So what's keeping you up at night? Let's face it together now on This Week at Work.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Burt, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Phil?
You know, it's a good morning. There's a lot of things going on. We just had a fantastic employment law update, the 43rd annual update. I want to say thank you for being a part of that. We had all of our law partners involved this year, which was the first time, and early feedback suggests that we nailed it and did a great job. And I appreciate you being involved in that as well. I was lucky enough to be your host and participate with you, and I thought we had a great audience and good discussion.
I agree with lots going on in the state of Missouri.
There is a lot going on, and not just in Missouri, but across the country. And I mean, it's a very interesting time, and AI is really the center of that focus from the seat I sit in. It was when we did have our employment law update earlier in the week, we had one in person also up in Peoria, Illinois. And the number one topic of that group there was centered around AI. Just a lot of conversation around policy and the practical use of it and how to audit it, to know if you are doing something wrong, because most people don't even know if they are doing it wrong, and how to tell and audit and manage the systems and so forth. It's very complicated, and that's the topic today is it making us smarter or not as smart? And just imagine waking up in a world where innovation is somehow made life a little bit boring. And I don't know exactly where you sit on that topic, Bert, but I take the side that I think it's going to make us smarter and more capable. I don't think that it's going to turn that corner for us and make us not as smart.
Yeah, I see both sides of it, Phil. I think that there are aspects of it where we are going to be maybe made a little less smart. I kind of relate it to using GPS. How many times have you gotten buried in your GPS and you're following it blindly and it takes you somewhere wrong, especially if you're in a big city using it to walk around. And then you're like, wait a minute, this is not right. And you try to go back to using a map, a regular map, or just thinking about it like logically where you need to go, how to get from point A to point B. And you have what I call map amnesia. You forget how to navigate on your own.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of time to sort of recalibrate there and figure out, okay, I know how to get from A to B. I need to stop relying on these maps. And I do think that there is an aspect of that. So maybe I'll coin a new term, map amnesia. We can have we could have AI amnesia, where we sort of forget some of the things, how to do certain things, because we're using AI to do those things.
Yeah, and it's an interesting way to look at it, and I can definitely relate to that. I mean, my kids cannot navigate a map or their directions maybe as well as I can. But they are quick to tell me often, Dad, that is so old school. No one needs to know how to do that today.
Right.
And I'm not sure what the purpose of that is today if we do have the technology. Now, should the technology disappear and go away, then it might be a more critical skill for us. But I even remember in social studies, having to study maps and maps legends and learning how to measure and distance maps and plan trips. And that was a skill that they taught us. Now, maybe in place of that skill, they teach us something else that might be more productive. I don't know. But, I think that's been the story of human evolution of things that we forget and learn to do, as simple as, if you break it down, I mean, go out and start a fire without matches or fuel and those types of things today and rub two sticks together. And I'm going to bet you can't do it, not very well or effectively. And yet we've lost that skill, but we can light a fire and move on much more quickly than we could back then. So I think there's always a kind of a yin and yang to this one, that there's going to be puts and takes of better and worse. The question is, where does it take us, right?
Well, let me throw this out there. I mean, I think that, where does the skill of reading a map come back into play? It's not just, that we have the technology, so you don't need to be able to do it. It's really, is the technology correct? Is it right? And if it's
That's the
not,
big
yeah,
that's the big question. You're right.
if it's not right, then you got to be able to figure out the way to do it on your own. And
Well, don't you just replug the address in, right? And
yeah,
try
and it
another
keeps
one.
keeps
Yeah.
taking you back to the wrong place. And
Yeah.
I did use Grok, and I asked Grok. I said, how many accidents have been caused by people blindly following GPS maps? And Grok introduced a new term to me, and that's called death by GPS when it's fatal. And there are some distracted driving, a lot of it related to improper turning and maneuvering related to GPS. Estimates are by Grok, again, don't know if it's right, that 25 to 30% of all US crashes are caused by improper turning, maneuvering, and related to primarily distractions from GPS.
Yeah, no, that's a lot.
It
And
is.
the other half is due to texting or FaceTiming while they drive. But I do remember being, if I can hold up a prop, like reading a map as we're driving and steering and kind of watching the map. I mean, it's all kind of the same thing, just a different form today. But yeah, that's a very interesting number. Let's take this conversation and think about Jeffrey Hinton, who's so-called the godfather of AI, and he warns at a 10 to 20% chance that AI could completely displace humanity in the future, and that's like this huge claim, right? But we've seen those things, and you and I have talked about, like, where's this thing going? And that's when we start talking about displacing humanity and jobs, and how that starts to happen. What are the jobs that you look at or you think that are at most at risk here, um, in displacing? And we've talked a little bit about how do junior lawyers learn and how do HR professional learn the things that they need to know to become senior level.
Yeah, I think the jobs that are most at risk are jobs that require, like, what I would call rudimentary thinking, and often include repetitive tasks. I think those are the ones where people are going to be most at risk for displacement. And you start thinking about, as you mentioned in your opening, there are things like writing job descriptions. That's kind of rudimentary. Most people who write a job description, they go out, they start with a template somewhere. Well, AI can go out and start with that template,
Yeah.
and then they refine it and customize it to their specific job setting. Well, you can feed in to AI what the specific job requires, ask it to compare it to the template, incorporate it into the template, and boom, you have a job description. And so, where it might have taken a lot of people to do those things across a large organization, now it's much faster, and you don't need as many people to do that. So I think on those repetitive tasks, kind of basic level frontline research, basic frontline drafting of documents and letters and those types of things. And I'm talking much more broadly than just the legal world. I'm talking
Oh
about
yeah.
the world in general, what you do, HR world, accounting world, things that are repetitive and don't require a ton of skill and a ton of education to do those jobs. I think those jobs are the ones that are most at risk early on.
Yeah, no, I remember the day, when I was early learning the HR field and having to write job descriptions. And still, even today, as a CEO, I write job descriptions and review them for, people who work directly for me or for making a change. But it was, I can think about going out into a factory and shadowing a worker and engaging with, a production worker to better understand the physical demands of the job, the task of the jobs, the time on particular task, and kind of create, then having to think for myself how to create and make that job description. Now, it goes back to like, Google Maps or, a map app. I don't know what the real value of learning that is, but I know there was value in it that I use today. So I think as everything evolves, the question is how much value will that be in the future for people to know how to do that? And if I look at kind of what MIT research is saying, they're saying that Chat GPT usage led to notably reduced activity in brain regions tied to attention, memory, and higher order reasoning. And I think that's kind of what I'm referring to. It kind of became an if then that type of reasoning for me, even as something simple as a job task. Well, if you're doing that for this many hours, well, how are you doing this for this many hours, but you're only working 8 hours, and
Right.
it would create some level of reasoning in my mind that, then allowed me to apply that reasoning to other things. And I think that's the risk I do worry about. I just don't know if our reasoning then becomes focused on something very different at that time versus those types of tasks.
Well, and frankly, what prompted you and I to do this program was there's a great article that came out, and we shouldn't say it's great, an interesting article. Whether it's great or not is subjective, but an interesting article from Forbes magazine that's literally titled "New Study Says AI is Making Us Stupid, but Does It Have to?" And that kind of prompted you and I to do this program. And interestingly, this study, 666 participants were surveyed across various demographics to assess the impact of AI tools on critical thinking. And some of the key findings, there were really three of them. Something called cognitive offloading, where frequent AI users were more likely to offload mental tasks relying on the technology for problem solving and decision making rather than engaging in independent critical thinking. That's number one. Number two was skill erosion. Over time, participants who relied heavily on AI tools demonstrated reduced ability to critically evaluate information or developed nuanced conclusions. And then third, generational gaps. Younger participants exhibited greater dependence on AI tools compared to older groups, raising concerns about the long-term implications for professional expertise and judgment. So I listened to those three key findings, Phil. And again, I bring it right back. The first thing that struck me was bringing it right back to the GPS example that I gave a few minutes ago, this cognitive offloading. We offload mental tasks and rely on the technology. We sort of blindly follow that blue line Even if we feel that it's taking us somewhere wrong or down a one-way street, or this turn can't be right, or it has us starting off the directions going one way and we know it's the other way, but we still follow it. And then that skill erosion, we have a reduced ability to critically evaluate the information or develop those nuanced conclusions. There may be a better route, there may be a shortcut, there may be construction that's blocking it that's not in the GPS. And then of course the one that surprises me the least is the generational gap.
Yeah, the best way to solve this problem, Bert, is just go get a horse. Just go get a horse, right? I mean, forget about it. Get rid of the cars and the electric cars, gas cars. We're going to go back to riding a horse.
Hey, whoa. How do you charge your phone on a horse? That's what I need to know. Where's the slot?
Yeah, no hands free on a horse there, Nick.
Nick, if you try to plug your phone into a horse, you might get a big surprise.
Yeah. Yeah, the last thing I'll say on this, maybe before we move on to Laura on the clock, Bert, and would love your opinion. I don't know if you do this, but one of the reasons why I think, well, this could be something that propels us forward versus makes us dumber, as they say, is that I find that, so I pay for the upgrade for Chat GPT and for Grok. And with the Chat GPT in particular, I get 1 hour of, I'll call it conversation, right? A verbal dialogue back and forth with the Chat GPT. And I use that 1 hour that capacity almost every day. And for that reason, what happens is I'm asking questions. Now, part of it is early on was experimental for me, trying to understand this topic so I could lead our members to the right place and be there when they're ready. But the other part now is when I have a question, wherever I'm at, I learn about the answer very quickly. And absent that channel of learning, I don't know that I would go back later in life when I didn't have the time to learn it to pick up, a book or go to a library or Google, those types of things to be better educated on something. So I do find that I am advancing my thinking and knowledge and experience, assuming that the Chat GPT is correct. And I will say it's not always correct. We recognize that, but it is more correct usually than my friend that I might be talking to, whoever that is, and it also is usually more accurate than not. I don't know. Do you ever get into a conversation with it as you're driving down the road?
I've seen you do this. You've shown this to me, and
Yeah.
I have yet to adopt that. Phil, it just occurred to me. I mean, when did you start paying for those subscriptions?
About a year or so ago.
It's really funny because that's about
Is
when
it
I noticed a
obvious?
real change in your attitude and your behavior. And I get back to that question: is AI making us dumber or smarter? I don't know,
Yeah.
Phil. Come on.
Well, let's hope it's not on the dumber side. I don't have too far to slide to the bottom. All right. Are you ready to get to lawyer on the clock?
I do, but just one more thing I want to throw out there. You and I chatted in the pre-program and the last couple weeks that there's a few interesting movies out there. There's the Terminator, the Matrix, and I think it was I, Robot with Will Smith before he seemingly
Yes.
killed his career. And
Yeah.
all three of those movies sort of portray a dystopian result of machine learning or artificial intelligence. And I think what those three movies are really kind of based on is something that's called the singularity. And
Yeah.
that's kind of just broadly referred to as the time when AI surpasses human intelligence in all areas. So that
And I
means
think
that,
that's the race right now
yeah.
amongst these developers is to get to singularity.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
and that's when the machines can start designing better machines than we can design. They can figure out better ways to power themselves than we can figure a way to power the machines. They can change their own battery supplies or power supplies. They don't need us to do that any longer. They think smarter, faster than us. And of course, as we know, with hydraulics and other mechanical capabilities, they're going to be a hell of a lot stronger physically than us. And so it's just really interesting. I think a lot of people, including Jeffrey Hinton, who you mentioned before, are reluctant to put a time frame on when the singularity will occur. But I would say the bulk of the estimates that I'm reading out there say that it's probably going to be by somewhere around 2045, the next 20 years. There are some speculative articles and blog posts that I read that suggest that it might happen within the next 5 years and maybe as
Yeah.
early as 2029. So
Yeah.
things are moving rapidly, and I think that's kind of the point of it, is that I have not seen a technology be embraced as rapidly as this has. Even when personal computers started becoming more prevalent in the late 70s, early 80s, that took a while for adoption. Networking took a while for adoption. Internet took a while for adoption. But AI, just in the last like 2 to 3 years, it's just been astounding, the rate of adoption.
It has been, and the singularity thing is frightening. It almost reminds me of like a nuclear weapon capability. Like we're developing something we know could be absolutely devastating to mankind, but nevertheless, we're gonna develop it. And regardless to what I think individually, I do believe our government and our technology leaders that base themselves here in the United States, I do want them to advance that because it would be devastating if our enemies had it and we did not. So it's really, repeating itself in the same way that the atomic bomb and the race to the atomic bomb changed the world and
Yeah,
the axis and powers of the world. And the same thing is really happening with AI. And for the general person, I don't know that we recognize that's what this race is about. It, it's
agree.
it's not about, hey, let's do this so you and me can use Chat GPT and
Right.
think it's cool or not. It's about something much larger than we realize, and our adoption rate to that is just part of the cycle.
I
But
agree.
it's going to change things in a massive way. And why is this an important conversation for us to talk about? Because it is changing not just the workplace, but the world. And as business leaders, we do need to apply the critical thinking skills we have to where and how we do things at work. Because if you don't do it, just like if our enemies were to get control of technology that we wouldn't have, if we don't do that in our business, we'll also will be behind. I mean, this is the trend, and we're down the road. It can't be reversed at this time.
I
Um,
I agree
so
wholeheartedly. It's going to happen one way or the other, and it's interesting. We have to continue developing this for our own survival against our foes.
yeah,
But at some point, will that technology get out of control?
yeah, and no doubt that's the fear for sure. Bert, I do want to get to Lawyer on the Clock because I know
Sure.
you have some good, interesting topics as always. Nick, pull that lever.
Curious about a case that could wreck your workplace? Lucky for you, we have a lawyer on the clock.
Phil, we've been talking so much about AI and technology and new trends in our last several programs here that I wanted to go back and give people a good reminder. There was a lawsuit filed just in the last couple of days against Walmart. They're facing a proposed class action alleging it violated the Fair Credit Reporting Act by running a background check, then rescinding a job offer to an applicant who had previously disclosed her criminal record before starting the application process. And I'm not going to
They're
get
not
too
getting some good advice.
well. I'm not going to get too much into the facts of the specific case, other than to say, don't forget that things like this are still out there. There's a time to run the background check. It's important, the timing of this, that it needs to be done. It should be done post offer, but pre-employment. There are letters that go along with running a background check. There's consent forms. The employee or applicant's consent needs to be obtained. And it's just one of those things. I feel like sometimes these things drop off the radar because we're so focused on other things, craziness in the world and politics and AI and those types of things that sometimes employers let these more mundane tasks, fall by the wayside. And some of these are, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, it's really easy to comply with, but you have to remember to do it. And I know AIM can help folks with that.
No, it's an important part of the process. And Burt, that's why when it became available to us, and we were one of the first 50 in the country to become accredited, one of the first 50 background check agencies in the country. I think we were like number 47 or 8 at the time, to become accredited and comply with the Fair Credit Reporting Act. And there are processes for that to make sure. But what happens in these scenarios is, again, I think it goes right back to the conversation. We bring in somebody who we just tell them how to do something. They haven't learned through experience how to do it. And what happens is, and we make decisions along the way that we think are fine, but our experience doesn't tell us, oh, you know what, we really shouldn't do it that way. Well, we can have this conversation. I can ignore that piece of information. We can start the person and then run the check. All these different problems that we get into, again, because we don't have the experience, where an experienced person maybe wouldn't make the same mistake. And I think that just kind of supports the conversation we had on AI for learning. And that's why then policy discipline becomes important. But more importantly, you need to have a vendor who can guide you through those proper channels to stay compliant and avoid the risk.
So so folks should reach out to you guys for help and maybe trying to avoid those situations, because failing to comply with the Fair Credit Reporting Act, again, it's easy to comply, but failing to comply can be really, really expensive. All right, so the next one I want to chat about is, this was kind of interesting to me just in the last month or so. I'm sorry, not even the last month, about in the last week to 10 days. The Bureau of Labor Statistics released preliminary data showing that the U.S. added 911,000 fewer jobs, in the 12 months ending in March 2025 than previously reported. So that's almost 1 million, Phil, and that indicates a significant.
Did you use Chat GPT to figure that equation out?
It's making me stupid, Phil. So in that's just that really does tend to indicate a significantly weaker job market than anticipated. And I think we saw yesterday the Fed finally cut interest rates by, I think, 1/4 point. And the economy is definitely slowing, and we're not seeing the number of jobs in the market increasing. I'm hearing anecdotal information that the job market's really tightening, and that caused yesterday the Democratic Women's Caucus, they asked the Department of Labor to probe why women in the workforce are leaving at a much more rapid rate than men. And so recent job data since January, so January through September, has shown that over 330,000 women have left the workplace just this year. Now, the Congressional Democratic Women's Caucus is attributing the trend or they've raised concerns that women are leaving the workforce because companies have begun ending their remote work policies necessitated by the pandemic, or because of other familial caregiving responsibilities, those are taking precedence. And over the same period, where over 330,000 women have left the workforce, 103,000 men have entered the workforce. So again, they're asking the Department of Labor to probe this. And you and I were talking pre-program. Your own experience with your family
Sure.
and
Yeah.
Nick's own family is exactly what these lawmakers' concerns were directed toward, that women are leaving the workforce because there's familial caregiving responsibilities that are taking precedence over the work.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to earning potential. I mean, it's not a complicated formula, and I've experienced it in our family. My son and his wife had their second baby. She was able to work part-time, wanted to work part-time and get out of the house and contribute financially. But when they had two children, the cost of daycare just became outrageous, and she couldn't earn enough to make it worth her time, and it's the trade-off. And it isn't a situation of sexism in our family. It's that, my son has a different skill and a different earning potential. And they agreed who should stay home and take care of the children while the other one is earning. And the outcome is, they're living on one income versus two, but the one income value is better than the two income value, when they measure the whole of everything, even, in the sense of subtracting out the cost of daycare, the little bit that's left over. And this is a big problem. Many of our members are working very, diligently to solve this problem. What I'd really be interested in that study, and I did not read it, but I would like to, was there anything about the age of the people who entered the workforce or exited the workforce in that demographic?
Well, it says the data shows that the share of mothers in the workforce between the ages of 25 and 44 with
Yeah.
young children has
Okay.
fallen almost 3 percentage points since January. And so
Yeah.
that is a huge number. I mean, 25 to 44, ages 25 to 44 with young children, 3% of that group is leaving the workforce.
Yeah.
That's a significant number of employees when you look nationwide.
And then couple that with, what we see in many of the regions of our membership right here in the Midwest, then you have declining populations, people choosing to have children later in life and have less children. And, we have a declining population that creates a different workforce problem, maybe not just today, but, in 16 to 20 years from now when people would become productive in the workforce. And that creates a compounding problem. And most of the time, much of that is due to the cost to raise children and send them to school and educate them and so on. So it's a big
ain't cheap.
problem.
It ain't cheap. And it's interesting, the conversation that your son and your daughter-in-law had recently with the birth of their second. I mean, that's the same conversation that my wife and I had 27, 28 years ago, when she decided to stay at home, or we decided as a couple that she would stay at home and raise the family. And I don't know, maybe what's old is new again, Phil.
Well, what I will tell you is when we made that decision, same for our family, my wife and I, we made that decision. She stayed home, she raised the kids. I don't know how we would have done it otherwise. We have three children. And
Same.
it was more than the cost of health daycare that went into that decision, but that was one of the factors then, and it was more affordable then. But it's interesting, and I think a year or so ago, you and I talked about it on the program, that there's statistically, if I remember correctly, there's more women that stay home with their children today than they did in 1990. And
That's
that, if you
fascinating.
think about that, that's an interesting point when you think more women choose to stay home today than we did in 1990. I was shocked when I read that. Now, maybe someone will fact check that and tell us something differently, but that was a report I read, and I was shocked to hear it. Yeah, and I don't know the source. Yeah.
So that's what I have for you today, Phil. I know we're a little bit over. I took my 6 minutes and stretched it into 12.
Yeah, well, as a good lawyer, I would expect you to do that, Burt. But as always, I appreciate that. We are going to be back here next week. Let's see, you can download the Ready, Aim, Fire key takeaways, Ready, Set, AI, HR beginning workshop. Don't forget to check that out. It's in 90 minutes program. It's coming up Thursday, October 3rd from 9 to 10:30. It's just $25. This is a great program if you're a beginner in the space of AI. Maybe you haven't used it much. Maybe you've tried to use it. You're not sure what you would even use it for. What's the practical application for it? This is a great beginner's workshop. Lauren Patel, who was on the program a couple weeks ago, got some great ratings from her program, and as well, she's going to be leading that session. She does a great job. All right, Burt, we will be back here next week, yeah?
We will be here.
All right. Until then, let's go out and let's be good to somebody. Bye-bye.
Facing complex employment law challenges? As an AIM member, you get direct access to Ogletree Deacon's top attorneys for expert guidance and defense. Call AIM at 800-948-5700 or visit aimea.org to engage expert workplace specialists today. Thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please like it, share it, and make sure it's on your calendar every week. Ask your burning questions anytime and let us know what topics you'd like us to cover. Just go to hrask.org and be sure to leave a review wherever you catch our show to help other HR pros find us as well. We'll see you next week when we discuss what's happening this week at work.